Welcome to the Business Spotlight. My name is Jada Walker. I am your host for today's conversation, and my guest is Joseph Fischer. He is the CEO of Playmaker Recruiting. We'll be talking about his business, his journey to business ownership, challenges, best practices, and give you a little bit of background of who he is and tell us a little bit about his business. So thank you, Joseph. Welcome to the show. Like I said, thank you for being here today. We definitely appreciate it. I would love to hear more about you. And if you could give us a little bit about your background of who you are and a little bit about your business as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jada, for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity. I always love these kind of things to be able to sit down and share what we're doing and what we're building and what we're about. I can't pretend that I'm always the best about talking about myself, but I'm going to do my best here. I'm a kid grew up in the shadow of the University of Texas here in Austin, just on the north side. Went to the high school where they filmed Friday Night Lights, which was actually Pflugerville High School. So I still remember seeing the trucks
Oh my
there.
gosh, that's cool. I didn't even know that.
It was such a cool thing to see. And then, uh, ironically, I ended up working for someone in undergrad at Texas State who played the quarterback in the movie that they then came out with. It was a really small world and just a cool little confluence there. But I had a
Yeah.
perhaps not a massively successful athletic career, both whether in high school, kind of hit my growth spurt late. So I remember that first year just getting thrown around and wondering, what am I doing out here? And I saw with some of the struggles our team went through being in a really tough district in Central Texas with the likes of people playing at Lake Travis, with Baker Mayfield being there, Westlake, which has
Hmm.
no shortage of talent come through there, as well as others all through the Austin area. It was just a tough place to play, which is great, but it also means uh, we weren't always the most successful. And I saw a lot of things and a lot of people fall through the cracks trying to get a chance to play at the next level. And so it was when I went off to undergrad, I began exploring this. And then shortly after grad school, was still kind of putting the pieces together, having had a chance to intern with some staffs there, really understanding what's happening at the college level. COVID happens, and I decide, with all the time on my hands, to jump in. I had had experience with some of the different colleges and having been sort of an intern and on staff there. So I've seen what happens in the back end. Then all the rules start changing with the transfer portal and NIL and revenue
Hmm.
share, which changed the landscape dramatically and made it even harder for a high schooler to get a chance at the next level because the attention is going to the flash and it sometimes lacked substance. And we see now
Yeah.
there are programs spending a lot of money that aren't as successful, and those that spend a little less being more. And it's about spending now more efficiently and making sure everyone has the best chance to get seen. Make sure that someone like a Cam Ward, who really had his shot because of the transfer portal, being able to move from program to program, now those people can get seen more easily, and those people aren't flying
Yeah.
under the radar. And for every Cam Ward, there's probably 100 that never even got a chance to get looked at. And so how do we make sure that underdog story becomes even more common, because it's not about the money or having the right connections or being at a big program.
No, really. Oh my gosh, I love that you say that. I am a former high school softball player. So when I was in high school, it was about your connections and who you knew and all of that. So like I used to go on to the recruiting websites and I would put myself out there because my coach wasn't helping me. My mom didn't know what to do. Like I didn't
Mhm.
know who else to talk to. So I would do it myself. And I've talked to like so many different people. Even my boyfriend, he was like, I wish I would have known what to do back in high school so that I could have went to the next level. And I was like, yeah, like these like we need people like you because I love that. Like yeah, there's a lot of kids at my school who were not seen because of sports and like there was no one to help us. So I like really like this. Like I'm very intrigued by your business.
And there's so many stories just like yours all over the country. And the idea is it shouldn't be so complicated, but there are all these other
No.
services that come up that also ask an arm and a leg, be like, yeah, we'll show
Yes.
you what you need to do. And they're not doing anything groundbreaking. They're not
No.
doing anything special. And what's even sadder is a lot of those services, college programs don't trust fully because they know that service is going to give the rosiest picture because the player's looking at it. And they
Yeah.
know that it's weird. They can't fully trust it, but it's good that they now know this person is out there. So, how do we make sure instead of it being like ships in the night where coaches are looking for players and recruiters and scouts want this information, but they just keep passing each other because there's not a single place where all of this can be pulled into one location so that a player's not doing a bunch of extra work. The coach, your high school coach can, instead of being like, well, it takes all this extra work, how am I going to fix this? I'm also just worried about winning my games and keeping my
Yeah.
job. How do we give them their
Literally.
time back? And then they can sit there and say, okay, now that I have some extra hours, I can make sure that their huddle or their film looks good. And the players
Yeah.
contributed and is driving it, but the coach is now supporting them and saying, yes, this information is right, which makes a recruiter feel better about taking a chance on someone instead of it being this kind of least common denominator of, well, if 247 has them at a 4 star and I their film looks pretty good and I don't want to get fired for taking a 3 star over a 4 star and for some reason my recruiting rankings go down.
Hmm.
All of that to say that's not substance, that's kind of self-reinforced media coverage. And how do we make sure
Yeah.
we take that out of it and people get access to get seen? And then a player also has that transparency to say, oh, I sent this off to Texas Tech. They actually looked at it. It's not I'm just sending emails out with no understanding if anyone ever opened it. They looked
Oh,
at my
that's nice.
profile and I see, oh, they've looked at me 3 times this week. Maybe I should send a follow-up email to say, hey, I hope they can't always talk back to you because of the rules. So
Right.
that
Of course.
now you at least know, hey, they're looking at me. My coach sees that. So maybe the coach can send an email saying, hey, I saw you've been looking at my player. She's great. She's a team leader. She's doing a great job in the dugout of like keeping us motivated even when we're down. Those things matter almost more than just pure raw talent. And
Yeah.
now everyone's actually kind of working together instead of this everyone out for
Yeah,
themselves.
I was just
And
gonna say I like how it's like everyone's literally working together all in one place. Like it's not you have to pull from here and here and then like lay it all out on the table and be like, this is what it is. That's really cool. Like
yeah,
so okay, so let's go ahead and let's set the stage for the viewers. Say we'll take it back a little bit. So generally speaking, what does your current ownership structure look like? Because
uh,
of course, like you're the owner, but like, do
mhm.
you do some work in the business?
Yeah, so it is myself and a co-founder are two like owners. He's kind of the technical lead. I would like to say I'm good enough to be dangerous there. And my background being, in a past life in finance, and certainly a very different approach, but very still analytics based. I understand the data, doing a lot of that structuring and understanding what those unique analytics that we also offer to colleges look like. But when it
Okay.
comes to the front end, I would not call myself a designer by any means. I've learned a lot, but I wouldn't say I'm that's my innate talent. And so I have a lot of other teammates, some remote salespeople as well. We're a growing team, but we're still small. And because we try and put all the power into a player and their coach's hands, it doesn't mean we're around like a like some competitors that have these scouts everywhere that are then
I was just
writing
about to say like a
reports.
scout.
We are far more like here, we have helped aggregate everything. Now the player has their full resume and they have their questionnaire. So instead of you having to visit 10 different D2s that all have their own recruiting questionnaire on their website, you have one ready to go that's 95% of any question they're ever going to ask. So it's almost
Yeah.
like a common app for applying, but it's for your athletic career. And so we're really trying to bridge that gap and make it much more streamlined for everyone. And so college programs save time, players know how to navigate it, and the high school coaches that are supporting it are given more time to actually help kind of uplift those players and provide support that way. So our structure, I still do a lot. I I wear a lot of hats, being that we're still a young company, and I love that. It's challenging in a lot of different ways. And then as we're growing, we're adding more, a lot more to the team. A lot of ex athletes that we find, not only have they been through it and they know exactly
Hmm.
what they're selling, but they've been part of that team. They know what they're building and working towards.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm like, this is like listening to you talk about it. This is what I needed in high school. This is the website I needed in my life. Like, cause I just went on Google and searched like recruiting websites. Even just now, like today, I was like, what other recruiting websites are there still? And I wanted to see if the one that I used was still on there. I don't think it is. I don't recognize any of the ones that are on there now.
Or
But
they've been
I
bought, and there's a lot of
yeah,
that. There's a lot
yeah,
of
I
the
saw you like the Be Recruited. That was one I think that was around whenever I was in high school. And I was like, yo,
yep,
they just got bought by or not just, I don't know when they got bought, but they got bought by I think it was like NSA or um,
NCSA. Yep.
yeah,
Oh
NCSA.
yes, they're the big name in the space. They're also one of the most expensive options there. They've done a
Mm-hmm.
lot to buy out all their competition, which is I'm sure helped them from their strategic standpoint. We have such a different approach where we never charge a player, we're never charging a family, and we
Oh,
keep our cost
nice.
to a high school coach as low as possible. We because of some of the additional tools we give them, there's either a base fee for that, or if all they're wanting to do is stamp and like say, yep, these are our players and this information looks right, that's free. So we try and make it to where
Oh,
it's
nice.
always accessible, because otherwise we're undermining the whole point, which is everyone has access. It shouldn't matter if they're in an inner city school or they're at some big, at Westlake. It shouldn't matter, and the talent should rise to the top either way.
Yeah. So, quick question. So, if it is just like a player, like let's say that their coach doesn't even know what your website is. What if it
Mhm.
is just the player that is like controlling their their stats and stuff?
Mhm.
How would that work? Like, would they be able to like I guess ask their coach to kind of like do an
Yes.
input type of thing? I mean, okay, I'm like,
So
let you
we
answer.
we do sort of, it's a great question, and we work sort of two ways. We do a lot where we will aggregate data ahead of time. So if a player's coming in, they've played varsity, some level of
Mm-hmm.
varsity, we've aggregated data. So when they come to claim that profile, it probably already has, if they finished last year on varsity, it has that season already there. It has, if they've
Oh,
posted some
cool.
totals out there, whether that's on a huddle or a max preps or other places, we've usually found ways, or another great place is that social media. We've pulled
Mm,
it together and we're linking where the film is, where the social media is, and those totals.
that's
So they come in and it's
cool.
already there. So we're not asking the player to log in at the end of every week and log this data themselves. We much prefer to find these third party verifications so we know the recruiter feels better about the numbers. It's not just from the
Mm-hmm.
player. And then we also try to do our best when it comes to those measurables, which players can provide, whether it's a 40-yard dash or a vertical or things like that. That's where we really love having a coach involved to say, yes, here's what we have for those records. And here's our version of it. The player may have submitted one, and the coach has also said, and here's our version of it. So a recruiter can look at both and say, okay, here's what the coach is saying, here's what the player is saying. That also gives them a little idea of, okay, is this how can I trust this player? Are they doing a
Yeah.
lot? It can also help them understand a little more about how they're handling their recruiting. And so there's a lot that's kind of passive for a player, which is great. And then they still have a lot of ways to say, all right, here's my link. I'm going to just send that out. And then they know when someone's looked at it, and that's even better. So everything really self reinforces.
Man, that is crazy. I'm like, you're like literally you're answering every question without me even having to ask it because it's just coming. That is crazy. But like I love this. I'm about to tell everybody like I'm really about to tell everybody about
Hey,
afterwards.
we're that's one of the biggest things where we find, when we talk about the different struggles we've had over these years, it's building that awareness, because someone like
Yeah.
NCSA, they have a new crop of parents that they can, sell the dream to. And
Right.
I get you're a parent wants to do everything they can to support their kid.
Of
And
course.
when they're being told, well, this is how these people get recruited, it's a hard thing to say, am I not going to spend that bit of extra money, or how can I make this work?
Right.
But in a lot of ways, that they love telling those stories for players that were already getting recruited and just happen to have that profile. It's like, so which came first in that, chicken or the egg, or egg scenario? So it's such a different approach. And we
Yeah.
always try and say the player first obviously has to drive their own recruiting. We know there's also a lot of parents that get really involved. And
Yeah.
for a high school
Yeah, some
coach,
more than some more than the other.
yes.
I
And sometimes
definitely
to
have
the
seen it.
detriment, yeah. And sometimes to the detriment of the player, they're like really in it and doing everything. And
Yes.
a high school coach we found, because we've talked to a lot of athletes, a lot of high schools, and a lot of colleges. High school comes in and they have a parent that's in there saying, "Hey, what are you doing for my kid? How are you helping them get recruited?" And with our tool, they can say, "Hey, here's everywhere that's looked at his profile. We've sent this out." And they kind of have the receipts, so to speak, to say, "Here are the
Yeah.
conversations," instead of before they send an email, maybe have no idea if it got opened and have no idea what traction that they've actually had. We have a
See, and that's
much
like
better
one of
way
my
to do
favorite
that.
parts is that you can see that they open the email. Because it is like you're just waiting and waiting, and it's like, I don't want to be annoying and then them hate me.
And it's demoralizing sometimes. You may have a ton of traction and have no idea because the rules are what they are. And that's
Right.
tough. And if your coach is not incredibly gregarious, I certainly had one that was not the most outgoing individual. So that he's not doing a great job of selling you per se or responding to things in a very timely manner.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that you're still in those conversations, or that you're at least being seen? And then that gives
Yeah.
a player that much more energy to keep going. It's like, well, it's getting seen. So, like, we'll keep sending this out. I'll keep sending emails or DM them on Twitter because I saw they looked at me. And all of a sudden, those things, you're kind of manufacturing your own luck, and you're
Yeah.
really getting your experience and hard work out there. And
Yeah.
coaches love to see that. If they see someone who's a go getter, that's also a great sign to them on the kind of personality this player has as well. But you can't ask a 16, 17-year-old kid to keep running into a brick wall with no idea of what's working. That's a tough thing to
Right.
ask anybody, especially when you have other players that seem to have immediate attention because they're at the right place. And so that's really where we try to make that difference up.
Yeah. Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty of the business
Mm-hmm.
itself, let's look into your background a little bit. So we already know why you chose to go into this business. So as you look back on your journey so far, what has been the most memorable roadblock or hurdle that you were challenged with that you were forced to overcome?
Great question. And some of these are a bit technical. We look at a roadblock or challenge, I mentioned a little bit of that awareness. And
Mm-hmm.
coaches and anything in K through 12, when you talk about institutions or even higher education, they don't make any decision quickly. And
Not at all.
unless they are under some competitive stress and feel like they need to be making an immediate change, it is a slow burn. And one thing we're really proud of is, we developed these relationships and they took some time. And then that first big win of like, all right, we're in one of these big schools. They are using us. We have that brand now behind us, which we can say, hey, they've seen what we've done. They've demoed us, and now we're in the building and they love what we're doing. And especially when they come back to us and they say, what you're doing with some of these analytics is completely unique. Doesn't matter if your team works that's raised $240 million or someone else in the market or huddles. Like, we are doing things unique that also help them find these hidden gems. And that's where that's a big badge of pride where I feel like we've got over that hurdle, but it was a lot of no's and a lot of tough meetings and a lot of things where they say one thing and then the follow up is tough. And that same thing that, as an athlete experience, which is trying to get through that brick wall a little bit and
Mm-hmm.
without getting that yes and trying not to be annoying to that coach, but still being insistent in walking that fine line until somebody finally buys in and gives you that opportunity.
I love that. Yeah, so I have yet to encounter a business owner who hasn't had peaks and valleys on their journey to building a business. So how do you manage the difficult days?
Whew. I'm fortunate to have a great support system. I have some great family, some great friends, so many of whom, some of whom know a lot of what I do, and some of whom don't know anything. And it's almost better because they're not
Really?
asking
They
me
don't know
about the
anything?
tough day, right? I get to get completely away from it. I would say my basketball, I play every Saturday or Sunday morning with those, a
Nice.
really great group of friends, is a nice outlet. And you can definitely tell when it's been a rough week because I'm playing a little more aggressive than perhaps I otherwise would be.
You're like, sorry, guys, sorry.
Yeah, it's that competitive spirit coming out. But those have always been, great outlets and a chance to blow off steam a little bit and understanding that it's not a straight line. And I have another great mentor by the name of Scott Johnson, who's done some awesome stuff and been in the startup world for a long time. Been at some that have done great, been at some that went absolutely kaput, and said, there's going to be good and bad days, and you just kind of have to deal with them and take them as they are. And when you have a good one, don't just, be like, all right, great. And now on to the next one. Like, take a sec to appreciate it so that you also understand on the bad days, like, well, we've had those wins and they've sunk in, and don't just focus on the bad. And that carries you forward a lot further than just worrying about the defeats. And
Yes.
and keep a little bit of that chip on your shoulder. That's for sure.
Yes, I've had people where I've literally had to like keep reminding them of the positive things because they are just so negative. I'm like, you gotta change your mindset. Like, I don't know what's going on, but you need to read a book about mindset changing or something. Like
And
manifestation. I don't know.
yes, and having a sense of humor about it sometimes, especially after a really bad meeting, you're like, man, I don't know what happened there, but he was just in a grumpy mood. And sometimes you just have to be like, I guess something else was going on because he was in a bad
Right.
mood, and it is what it is. And knowing I've had some of those meetings, and then the next day they follow up and they're like, hey, I really liked what you showed me. It's like, that is not
And
the
you're like, did
impression I
you?
got. Yeah. It's like something else was clearly there. It wasn't on your face. He looked pissed off for some reason, and I misread it. But those are always, nice. And you have to consider these coaches are dealing with, maybe it's a kid who just got called to the principal's office and is like, I still have to
Right.
sit down for this, but I know I'm gonna have to go to the counselor and ask, deal with this. And there's so much going on when dealing with uh, administrations and youth and everything else, that you have to consider
And
that
it's
there's enough
funny.
going on.
It's so funny because as a kid, like you don't think of all those things that they have to deal with. You're just like, you're just my coach. Like that's all you do. But it's like that's not not what
Yeah,
all they do.
you're over here telling me to keep running, and what are you doing all the day? Why am I the only one running? Or, you got the one coach in the golf cart driving next to the track, and you're like,
Oh my
man,
gosh.
what are you doing? And but of course he's then on the phone and in the office late night breaking down film for the next day. It's like, there's a
Yes.
lot you don't see. You only see, when they're pushing you, which, can
And you're just
create
like,
its own
stop.
environment. It's like, really? Again? And so it's definitely an interesting world on this side of now the aisle, so to speak,
Yes.
looking at what they're dealing with on the back end and sitting down with them and, sitting in there, and then, oh, there's an announcement in his office about something, and you're in the middle of me and you're like, oh
And you're
crap.
like,
He kind of sits there for a second. He's like, how long do you have? Sometimes he's like, I may have to go run to do this. And I've certainly had those. It's like, if you need to do something, I've got some time, go for it.
right.
Especially when I'm on the road, sometimes it's like, I've got 3 meetings today and they're all spaced out. So if you've got to deal with something, I've got time. I'll follow you to the principal's office and keep talking with you. We could do that too. I've certainly been in a lot of interesting meetings that way, but being flexible, I think they appreciate that. And I think they
Oh yeah,
also understand
definitely.
the authenticity of what we're trying to do. And the biggest
Yeah.
thing is getting through to them. We're not asking them to spend a ton of money. We're not asking them, or not telling them that analytics and all this is like the end all be all. But we do understand that they want their kids to succeed, and acknowledging that their network is only so big. And how do you make sure that they get access to opportunities outside of it? And when you start talking to
Yeah.
them like that, things really open up and they understand, okay, it's not, you're not asking me to do a bunch of extra work. You're actually trying to give me a way to sync this data so I can spend more time doing what I want to do, which is coach.
Yeah.
They're in this profession to coach. They're not in it to fill out spreadsheets and do a bunch of admin work. So we try and give
Right.
them that time back.
Lovely. So I think earlier you had mentioned how you guys have like these packages that can be purchased. Could you go into more depth about those? Because I don't know if I had asked you earlier or if you may have, and I just like spaced out a little bit because like you're saying so many good things, and I'm like, wow, like I'm just really thinking about everything. So if you could please go into those packages for anyone that's watching.
Yeah, so we operate as a subscription, and we find it also helps everyone plan out their next year, especially when you talk about budgeting for schools and higher education. That's the way it's done.
Yeah.
We never charge a player, so that much it doesn't matter what's going on. At the high school level, we kind of have 2 brackets. One is kind of the free version, which is just managing who we have found that's on your roster and the ability to add some information. It limits the ability to see all of the transparency. You see who's looking, but you maybe don't know how many times. And then there's your baseline kind of purchase, which is $500 a year. Again, we try and keep it incredibly affordable in a world where programs are being charged $5,000 a year for just like video tools. The last thing we want to do
Crazy.
is put even more. And public schools are already under enough budget pressure, as are most
Right.
schools. So, how do we make sure that we're not the straw that breaks the camel's back? And we always say, because we work in just data, we're able to keep our costs low and we want to pass that on to our customers. And so for that 500, that also includes ways to sync that data in their own way. That we also offer some, game analytics that helps them provide some high level reporting for other things they might do if they're not utilizing other tools for that. And then we also have things for the strength and conditioning coaches. So even in the off season, there's still use. It's not just an in season tool. It's something that helps
Oh, that's
them
cool.
track and keep organized year over year and keeps those strength and conditioning, from whether it's freshmen, and we have tools for freshmen, JV, varsity, it's all the same. And so you can track that strength and conditioning over time or the height and weight over time. And now
That is cool.
college coach may be like, oh, he just hit a growth spurt. Maybe, I
Yeah.
can see the jump here. That makes a lot more sense. And we provide that context and the story for that player's journey, not just, a one off. And that's really where we pride ourselves, is that context. So that's really where our high school items break down. And then there's just a few premium options, which is customization work for any unique analytics that they may have. And then really on the college side, there's two levels. One tends to be regional and one is a national. And that's just the database with all these players, our unique analytics, and kind of unlimited search and access. So they have the ability to search every player in the country that we have found and have pulled together. They have unique search and filter functions. They may love a running back. I'll use an example as one we had worked with recently. They love dual threat running back, someone who can run and catch. So they may look for a running
Okay.
back that's 500 rushing, 500 receiving, at least 5 rushing touchdowns. Maybe they're at least 5'10". If it's a big D1 program, maybe they want them by a certain size. And
Yeah, I was like, they were the big boys. Like,
yeah, and then they look and they run that, and now they see not just those with the most highlights, but everyone from every size school that they may want. And then they may say, well, let's look at 5A, 4A, and 3A. And I want class of 2026 or 2027. Maybe they're building out an extra year. All of that's now at their fingertips, and they're one click away from their video. They're one click away from their social media. They're one click away from seeing their coach's contact information. So it's all right there instead of spending all this extra time going to all these different places. And then we have our kind of context analytics, which we've told is completely unique and really helps them compare apples to apples more with players,
hmm
because you may have one with a really difficult schedule and one that had a cakewalk, but how do you normalize some of that? How do you make sure that they can compare these more easily, or at least you have context for what happened? And that's really where we set ourselves apart. We try not to spoil too much of what we're our secret sauce, so you'll have to
yeah.
excuse me.
Oh,
But
you're
that's
okay.
really
Yeah.
how we. That's what we also really pride ourselves on, and what we've gotten a really great amount of positive feedback on.
Yeah, that is really cool. I'm like, literally everything that comes out of your mouth, I'm like, you're blowing my mind. Like that emoji, that's me the whole
It's
time.
we've it That's a hard earned reaction. There are certainly some times
Yes.
where we've pivoted a lot and realized, oh, they say they want one thing, but what they're really asking is another. And when you
Yeah.
start getting into that, you start really getting into their what the unsaid things that make them angry and keep the coaches up at night, that they're wishing they had a tool for, but they can't really express because they've never had anyone
Right.
try to solve it that way. And that's where we feel like we really set ourselves apart.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was like, I was gonna ask a question like, what sets you apart from you and your competition? But I'm like, I don't even think y'all have competition at this point. I don't know why anyone else is using
I
anything else.
think there are people that definitely are in that space, but we structure
Hmm.
ourselves so differently. I think we are unique in that way. And
Yeah,
because
you
of how
are.
we aggregate and try and keep everyone working together and keep
Hmm.
that access so much easier, that's where I feel like we really separate ourselves. And why
Yeah.
I feel like because of the two different tool sets we've actually bridged, we are unique in that way. But there are people on
Mhm.
each maybe side of the uh, type of product where we're competing with, but by I think directly connecting, we really make ourselves a wholly unique experience.
Yes. So this is going to lead me into marketing, which of course is something that's vital for every business out there, and some people obviously struggle with. So I'm always curious what successful businesses are doing. What percentage of your monthly sales is typically invested back into your marketing budget?
Great question. I would say there's two elements here. One is our kind of public facing advertising, which goes out targeting players to claim their profile in high school programs. And then we have our direct sales channels, which really go talking to colleges because we know there's a
Mhm.
defined universe. We know who we're trying to talk to. And so
Right.
those tend to be a lot more targeted.
Okay.
We're putting a ton of money back into our sales and marketing, given that our biggest goals right now are building that awareness and building that inbound sales engine, something where now people know more about us and so they're coming to us. So when they Google, they're like, well, they're not just Googling college recruiting. They're, well, what about Playmaker Recruiting? I heard about them. I got a friend using that. Let me go check that out. And that being the change in behavior and where we start really accelerating that growth and the number of programs already claimed profiles and everything like that. So that's where we're really investing. So I'd say by a percentage basis, we're probably at 80% is going right back in, and the other 20 is going into other initiatives based on feedback we're getting from others. So that's kind of where I would break that down.
Nice. And I like that because I'm from Illinois, so I'm definitely going to be telling all my friends from Illinois to
Mm-hmm.
put people on because I think some of them even work at my high school now, like our old high school. So I'm like, yeah, y'all need this. Y'all need to check it out, all of you.
Yeah, we're always excited to help more people out. And where in
Yeah.
Illinois did you go to school in Illinois as well?
I did, yeah. I literally like grew up in Illinois from kindergarten to high school. I lived in, I don't know, you probably won't know where it is. It's called Rantoul, Illinois. It's where like the old like U.S. Air Force Base used to be. Like some people know that, but then other people
Okay.
just don't. But if you know where like Champaign, Urbana is, like with U of
Yes.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm from that area.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Awesome.
Yeah. So fighting Illini from here, but
Yeah. I mean, they've had a great start to the season. It's
they
a tough
did actually.
conference.
I was surprised.
Yeah.
I was very surprised because the past couple years I haven't. I don't know,
I
but they're
I
definitely
certainly
getting
get that.
better.
Yes, and it's one of the things. It's iterative. I certainly, and every program's trying to navigate the new rules and everything differently. There are others
Yeah,
who are spending until the hope is it pays off. I don't know if that's going to work for all of them, but fair enough. And then you've
and
got
actually,
people. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no, no, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you were done. But actually, like now that I'm thinking about it, I think one of my cousins, she has a friend that works in like the athletic um department at the U of I. So I'll try and mention this to him too,
That's awesome.
because
Yeah,
he
we're
would love
always
it.
trying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
our
course.
our current presence is mostly through the south/southeast as we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to build, partially because that's where I had some connections already,
Right.
and also tends to it's being it from the state of Friday Night Lights. That from the high school level that has its
I'm just
own.
gonna mention that to all of them. They're gonna think that's wild.
It's such a cool kind of thing that we played, and they still played in that little stadium for so long, despite how big the high school got. They
Mm-hmm.
finally have built a new big one. I guess that's nice for fitting more people in, but it doesn't quite feel the same. But it is cool. So that big P you see there, that's for Permian for the show. It's actually P for Pflugerville Panthers, which is
That's
cool.
so
We're
funny.
also blue and gold.
That's so funny because then you guys are like, yeah, that's my school.
Yeah.
Like I would point it
Yeah.
out
I
all the
know
time.
that
I'd tell
field.
everyone,
I know that field
yeah.
house, and it was that small the whole time too. So it's
Oh
nothing,
my gosh,
nothing, it wasn't exactly glamorous, but it's very cool.
that's so funny. Okay, so back to
Yes.
marketing. Sorry,
Yeah.
totally went off tangent. But
No, it's all good.
so for what sort of marketing planning do you have in place right now?
So we have really two big initiatives. One is we're now generating new features. So something where
Okay,
a player has been found through the system and we know they don't really have many offers or they're all small schools, but they stand out in all these other ways. And writing kind of these little reports saying, hey, here's somebody you could find through Playmaker. Here's what are some of those things that make them stand out. And just making a regular kind of posts about that, just trying to say, hey, we're showing our work. Here is the ways that you could find other people that maybe could be program changing for someone that they may have just missed because they're not as big of a school. And then the
right,
other is, things like this that we're doing here that are the chance for us to tell our story in a full way so that people really understand that we're not just another one of these recruiting services. We aren't a recruiting service. We are a platform trying to connect everyone in that space. And that's where we feel like we just really want to tell that story because we're not trying to sell a player on, we'll write a report for you and then we're going to get you recruited. And I'm going to call my 5 people that I know and he's going to call his 5 and we'll get you there. It's much more about giving them the tools and understanding of what that looks like and arming them with everything they need and understanding where there's information out there that's free. Something that we do is we'll point to the College Board, which has free tools, which will tell you everything you need to know academically about a school. That's
hmm,
awesome. And that if they have a particular degree they want that they've also filled out, they know, okay, this school's looking at me. I might want to check them out. What is it? I've never heard of Southwestern. Oh, it's a small D3 in Georgetown, Texas. Maybe I should check that out. Or you see something like Illinois, and I was like, well, I know Illinois. I know what's going on there. I was thinking of going there anyway. This would be awesome. Kind of those opportunities all in one place. And so by doing that, these two methods of one telling our story and getting the word out and the other kind of showing our work is a big part of what we're doing and where we have that really our marketing spend is going in addition to improvements on their social media advertising that's kind of paid ads, but it really comes back to things like this where we are telling our story and coaches have an understanding and have the chance to see that we're not just another recruiting service, and that there's this
yeah.
genuine desire to try and help fix the system that is strayed very much off the path I think so many believe it should be on, and that is the best way to operate just because of all the money being thrown at everybody right now.
I love that. That was a great answer.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so moving from marketing to sales, what does your sales process usually look like? I say you usually go to the schools, right? I think we already answered
Yes,
that.
our colleges are very outbound, and that's gotten better. That cycle sped up a lot from when we were first coming around, and it was kind of a year because it was getting in front of them. They're testing it, they're unsure. Then they maybe have a little tougher season, and they're like, well, maybe we need to try something new out because things aren't going our way. And that's gotten us in some doors. And now that we're building a little more reputation, that's getting easier. And hopefully, as we bring in some new big names here soon, that's, fingers crossed,
And
then
that's
it
why I'm like, I'm gonna
becomes,
mention it from back home. Like they will definitely hop on real quick, I'm sure.
and it's one of those things, it's like a few kids did their homework in class and everyone else forgot. And so, depending on who you copied off of, it depends on what answers you got. And so there's a lot of schools that operate off of there's some other people that are good at finding talent. And if they offer them, we should look at them. And they kind of get to come in later. And a lot of big programs that are big brands that feel like, well, we can offer them and they're going to come here because we are Alabama. We are
Right.
Georgia. It's like people want to
Yeah.
play here, but we don't have to find every single kid, though they're going to do their due diligence. They're not having to be as in the weeds in the grassroots
Yeah.
at that level. And so we find connecting with those programs has been great because they're only accelerating their search. But now with the money that's come into play, Georgia can't just offer somebody and immediately hoard all the talent. It's going everywhere now. And so
Yeah.
them being that much better about it, and us setting ourselves apart there, bringing in a big program also means everyone else, if Georgia does something, Alabama's looking over, it's like, what, they're using Playmaker Recruiting? What is that? We should probably look into that. What's going on? And the competitive nature takes on, is like, well, if they're doing something, we should probably at least explore it. And so that's
Yeah.
what we're hoping to do next, is find those big partners that are going to be not only champions of the new, trying to get back to the right way of doing things, but also kind of, it's going to put competitive pressure on everyone else, because I'm a true believer in the things that we're doing, and we've seen results of that, where these players that are overlooked get that shot and take off. And we want to be able to say, well, everyone's a playmaker athlete now, because
Yeah.
that's what the system is designed to do.
I love that. Okay, so you had mentioned having a few team members where possible. I feel it's important to address the topic of building a great team. So, how do you describe your leadership style in business, and has it changed over the years?
Yes. I will say, as the most, except for one, I'm definitely the most junior member of the team, ironically. Noah, who's the CEO, Noah Menikoff, was a gem I found. This is back when Angel List, before they became Well Found.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the number of in of bad and sometimes very awkward interviews where, I sit down, and I was also clean shaven. So I'm sitting here baby faced, and people 20, 30 years my seniors sitting here. And I'm like, here's my idea. Here's what I'm thinking. I've kind of built out, and the very interesting conversations that came from that. And Noah has been an absolute rock star. So I will say I also got very lucky in the way I came across him. He's also based here in Austin, which I think also helps
Nice.
keep community. It's not someone incredibly far away. We just
Right.
sat down for dinner yesterday, literally, and had that
That's cool.
chance to, always try and keep. It's not a big company, but company morale, we're keeping it up,
Yeah.
and then we have our salespeople, and I tend to always first want to surround myself with people that are smarter than me, so that when
Mm-hmm.
I ask a question, they're like, it's a reasonable question, but this is why we're not doing it. It's like, cool. I'm not going to overrule. I have no ego about it. And it's not about me or the brand I'm building. It's about the company and what's best for the mission. And I find that by having that at the heart of everything I do, I'm avoiding bringing in a bad vibe that maybe attracts
Yeah.
the wrong people. And I tend to be a little more hands off. My leadership style is
Mhm.
not over someone's shoulder. I am
You're
not a
not a micromanager.
micromanager. No, I think in a previous life, when I was leading over a group of analysts, uh, I I want to give them the tools. I will train them. I'll show them these things. If they ask me a question, I'm happy to get as much in the weeds as they want. But if you don't ask me a question, I'm assuming you got it. And we're gonna touch base when we have that next meeting. And if there's a question, then we'll get into it. And I think that honed a lot of those skills, where I believe in being a great teacher to empower people to do a great job and be really good at communicating the vision, that's rattling around up top in here somewhere,
Yeah.
and then letting people do their job and not having a million meetings on their calendar so that they can get their work done. And that's really how I tend to operate. I think earlier on we met a little more often as we were making these bigger chunks and more progress, and there wasn't the framework already in place.
Right.
And I've definitely always been a little more hands off, but I think I've found the right balance now, except for then when we have new people, where I feel like, some of the interns I've had say, it was great. I got to do a lot of cool stuff, but I didn't see him that often. It's like, well, that's fair. I am a little busy. I will admit that. And trying to also make sure that I don't leave them without a rudder, and make
Hmm.
sure there's still direction there. So I wouldn't say I'm perfect. I'm getting there, but we're getting. I'd like to say I've found that balance a lot more nowadays than before,
Yeah.
where I was checking in a lot for updates. It's like, no, nothing yet. Come on, give me some time to work.
No, I like that. I like whenever people don't micromanage because then it's like I feel like when people micromanage, it makes them like the other person more nervous. Or at least like, for me, it does. Like I don't like when
Mhm.
someone's like right here, unless I really need your help and I need you to show me something. That's whenever you can, yeah, micromanage or whatever.
Exactly.
But
And
don't do
I
it every
find
second of the day.
and that's the kind of people I hire. I ask them, how much direction have you needed in the past? What was your last boss like? And they're like, oh, they looked over my shoulder, everything. And if they've had a lot of bosses like that, I start to worry, and I've gotten better at this after some less than successful hires, right? I mean, I'm not perfect.
Hmm.
I'm not batting 100. That is okay. They've had a lot of that experience and they say they're ready to have someone that's not micromanaging, but then when they're in that
It's
situation they're almost too free and they don't know what
yeah,
to do. So I have found that the people that have had previous startup experience and people that have, Noah was a very early, either one of the very first employees and kind of founder of a fintech group back in the day, and they had an exit. And so he's been there. He's seen what the kind of scrum looks like, as well as once it's reached a little more stable position. And he's kind of, been always been very honest with me. Is like, here's what I'd like to set up as our recurring meeting and what that cadence looks like. And I'm not getting in the, I would be a terrible leader if I got in the way of that when he's saying this is how I will be most effective, and I would overrule him because I like to hear myself talk, which I don't, which is maybe a good thing for everyone. So I've had those bosses where they have their way they want to do it, regardless of what anyone has to say. It's going to be done this way, and that's that's his prerogative, and that's just not how I'm going to run my company.
yeah, no, I love that though. Okay, so let's fast forward and let's look at what's to come. So, where do you see your business in the next 3 to 5 years?
Our biggest next mission is expanding sport coverage. We have some core sports and we want to widen that because our goal is it's not just about the revenue sports, it is about all these other sports. Football
Right.
obviously gets no shortage of attention. And part of
Not at
that
all.
is the TV contracts that are structured as they are. I certainly see that continuing to expand as renegotiations happen and we're seeing more
Hmm.
revenue come into those additional sports. But for the moment, obviously, that football is that dominating factor, which is why we focused on that first. We want to have basketball, men's and women's, and then baseball, softball out here, in another month, because we've built our structures to be able to expand sports very easily, and we have that ability. And then the other is looking to expand partnerships with junior colleges who are now, because of the way the new transfer system is set up, are being put under a lot of pressure to develop players to get to that next level because they're taking fewer high school
Yeah.
players. And how do
Hmm.
we make sure that they still have the resources to take that next step? So, working with a revenue share to say, hey, every junior college in the state of California is now banded together. They're putting all of their athletes in one place. There's a subscription there, and they get a dividend back because they're putting all this work and effort into helping these players succeed.
Huh.
And then the players are getting national exposure, not just where their coach has the best
Yeah.
connections. It's hard for a junior college in California to connect with, a NC State all the way on the other side of the country unless they
Right.
have a previous coach's connection. And maybe only a few of those coaches have that national attention. So, how do you make sure you even that out? And that's where we feel like there's a new evolution for us to make there. And that's just junior colleges. There's certainly opportunity, whether it's NAIA or other external to the NCAA institutions that are in this kind of forced feeder program position because of the way the NCAA has ended up shaping up. And they keep getting sued. So who knows what the new rules will be in another year.
I'm
So
like, it's just so crazy how everything just keeps changing.
it is constantly in flux. And as that continues to develop, it's sometimes hard to know what that's going to look like in the future because all these attempts to try and create structure have kind of fallen apart, partially because each
Hmm.
conference at the highest level is out for their own. the Big
Right.
Ten's fighting the SEC, and the Pac-12's now trying to rebuild, and the ACC is now the little brother trying to decide. So they're all vying for their own interests, which then creates kind of every man for themselves mentality. And then you wonder that starts bumbling down to the players who are then out for themselves,
Hmm.
who get a big offer somewhere else. I think we're going to see it hopefully settle into a little more of a balance.
Yeah.
Schools are eventually going to have to stop asking their alumni for endless amounts of money that isn't going to a permanent endowment, that is just kind of being set on fire with the idea that they're going to be
Yeah.
competitive. I think they're going to have to balance that, and eventually we're going to see a slight return to normal, with hopefully with us playing a part of it, and on a national level, an evening of the playing field back to away from it just being those now who have the most money, or just those that were the blue buds before, but truly everyone having access to opportunity, because the NCAA isn't going to do anything. They're holding out for the hopes that Congress somehow passes a law for that. We can't. The government's currently shut down. I don't think we're in an environment where much is going to be
Oh
done for
my goodness.
college sports. So
No.
it's, I don't think we can count on that. So it's going to have to be us, everyone in the industry finally saying, we're all fighting with each other, but we have to establish and agree that we are kind of breaking our system. And if we keep pushing it to this extreme, it's going to completely shatter. And what does
Right.
that look like? And what does that look like for every other sport? And how do you continue now to fund these other sports that are possibly getting cut so that they can throw more money
Mm.
chasing revenue for football? And how that's got to pay off. And you have some schools that have paid their coach, and they're not even sure if they're going to have him in the budget to be able to pay him the next year. But they paid him a huge contract to keep him there. So
Right.
it's gotten a little out of hand. They've gotten a little over their skis. I think we're going to see a balance, hopefully. That's what I'm hoping, and I'm hoping we can be a part of that. When you talk about that 3 to 5 years, that we kind of take that place and can be, as opposed to the NCAA's clearinghouse and their transfer portal, that we can be a lot more transparent option that's doing the same function without being this kind of overarching, kind of constantly maligned government governing body, that
Yeah.
we know we're giving back, and we're trying to make sure that we're supporting the grassroots of the sports, instead of it being extract as much money as you can, which is what a lot of the players in the space are doing. And
Yeah.
they've taken a lot of private equity money and venture capital money, and we've been bootstrapped the whole time. So we're not under this pressure from third parties to say, go get every dollar you can. We're in the position to say we don't need to maximize that profit, and go after all the family spend and the player spend. We can set in and say, we're doing this because there's a mission behind it. And yes,
Yeah.
we have to make a profit to stay open. That much is true, but there is not this endless hunger, that is coming from the VC or PE element, to push to IPO and then jack up everyone's prices once you have control. We know that they've gotten burned enough in the past with that, and so we want to be different.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love everything about your company because you have had a really interesting story. And so, as we wrap up, I have a few rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Okay. So, what is the key to success for you?
Taking a step back and every once in a while, and taking a look at the big picture, and understanding, am I still on the right track? Am I following my North Star, or have I gotten too in the weeds? I think that's allowed me a lot of perspective.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. What is one piece of advice for other business owners that you would give them?
Don't be afraid of the first no's. It's going to be hard, and finding that first advocate in that first business that says yes, it's coming, but it's a time thing. And don't let that initial difficulty slow you down.
I love that. I'm actually a person like if I hear no, I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, all right.
unless it's
You have a good
unless
one.
it's like in my family, then I'll keep annoying you if you're in my family. But if it's like someone I feel like intimidated by, I'm just like, okay, I asked you the one time, that's it.
And I'll come back
I love
around.
that.
Yeah, and it's like, hey guys, I'm and maybe this is a little chip on my shoulder. It's like, they said no. the season went really sideways for them. It's like you come back in the offseason, like, hey, do you want to now have a conversation? So it seems like
Right.
you had a tough time. You're worried about keeping your job. Maybe now's the time to do something different. You want to try that? That's a little bit of the. I phrase it a little nicer than that, but certainly I have a long memory a little bit, so
Yeah.
I keep an eye on those things.
Okay, so this is kind of a fun question. If you had a little bit of magic dust that you could sprinkle on one spot of your business, where would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one because there's so many. How much of this dust can I get? Because
I'm like, maybe you can sprinkle half of it here, half of it there, type of thing.
I think it would be on that marketing element and
Mm,
really some really engaging stuff to really build that interaction and engagement online and our opportunity to tell that story and brand awareness. Like that's where that dust is going. I think I have such a strong team in other areas that if we get the chance to get in front of someone, we can figure the
hmm
rest out.
Yeah. All right. So before we get to the final question of the day, I would like for you to share with our audience how they can follow you or learn more about you or contact you.
Yeah, so our website is playmakerrecruiting.com. We have a ton of information there on our site. You can request a demo. If you're a player, you can go to that student athlete page and try and claim a profile. Right now, football is what is live, but we will have those other sports live very soon. So keep an eye out for that. And then we have Instagram on Playmaker Recruiting, Facebook, Playmaker Recruiting, Playmaker Recruit on Twitter or X or whatever we want to call it these days. And all of that is linked on our website. We highly recommend, keep an eye out for us and if you're a coach, fill out the request for a demo. We're always happy to talk and we'll be able to help you one way or the other try and solve these issues, whether it's also working with your PTA or booster club to make sure everything works out.
All righty. Well, we've come to that final question of the day, and that is what is most inspiring to you today?
The looks and the responses we get from players who once they filled it out and then they start seeing the traction and they actually know what's getting opened and just the opportunities that we then see the offers that come later that they get is so awesome to see, and that's what we do it for, and it's always inspiring and heartwarming and motivating to do. And hearing the same thing from the recruiter side where they're like, I've just saved so much time. It's like, I found this kid who goes to this school that I've never heard of, and I watched the film and he's playing both sides of the ball and he's doing everything. Why have I not heard of him? And that's what we do it for. And so from both of those angles, it's just so rewarding to hear that all that hard work and all those no's and everything are paying off and it's having a real impact on people's lives.
I love that answer. Well, this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed your story. Thank you so much for sharing. Also, I encourage all of you watching to save the show and come back and watch again because Joseph really did have some great insights for business. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so that you can get notifications every time a new conversation drops, just like this one. Thanks to everyone who joined us today, and a special thank you to Joseph for being here with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jada. This was awesome.